150 sailors, one steel tube, 90 days underwater, no sunlight, no fresh air, no escape. But here's what nobody tells you. The hardest part isn't the cramped space or the lack of privacy. It's the complete psychological breakdown that happens when you realize you're sharing your bed with two other people, rationing water like it's liquid gold, and eating food stored under your feet. This is life inside a nuclear submarine, and it's nothing like you think. Chapter 1. The Shower Ritual. Let me ask you something. How long is your morning shower? 10 minutes? 15? Maybe 20 if you're really enjoying it? Submariners get 3 minutes, maybe 5 if they're lucky. And I'm not talking about a quick rinse, I'm talking about the entire process. Wet your body, turn off the water, lather up, turn the water back on, rinse. Done. Get out. They call it a Navy shower, and it uses about 11 litres of water compared to the 150 to 230 litres you probably use at home. Here's why. Fresh water on a submarine isn't unlimited. Even though nuclear submarines can produce water from seawater using reverse osmosis plants powered by the reactor, every drop still matters. Energy that goes into making water is energy that can't go somewhere else. And on a submarine, everything is a trade-off. So the rules are strict. You sign up for a time slot, you share 2 showers with 30 other sailors in your berthing area. And if you go over your time limit, your shipmates will let you know. Immediately. Because when you waste water, you're not just being selfish. You're affecting the entire boat's supply. Now here's where it gets interesting. Not all submarines are created equal. On older diesel-electric submarines, showers happened once every 1 to 3 weeks. Not daily, once every few weeks. And the water was ice cold because heating it consumed too much battery power. But on modern nuclear submarines, the ones the US Navy operates today, sailors can shower daily. The water is actually hot. The reactor provides enough power to run the reverse osmosis plants continuously. But even with that luxury, the 3 to 5 minute limit is non-negotiable. Because 150 sailors all need their turn, and the schedule never stops. Think about that for a second. You're living in a metal tube the size of a football field laid horizontally. You haven't seen sunlight in weeks. You're breathing recycled air, and your one moment of personal hygiene, your one chance to feel clean, lasts less time than it takes to microwave a burrito. This is the first sacrifice submariners make, and it's just the beginning. Chapter 2. The Sleeping Nightmare. Now let's talk about sleep, because this is where things get truly insane. Imagine climbing into bed after a 12-hour shift. You're exhausted. You pull back the sheets, and they're warm. Not fresh out of the dryer warm, body heat warm, because someone just got out of that bed 30 seconds ago to start their shift. Welcome to hot racking. On attack submarines, junior enlisted sailors don't get their own bed. They share. 2 or 3 sailors rotate through the same bunk on different shifts. When one sailor finishes their watch and heads to sleep, they're climbing into a rack that's still warm from the person who just vacated it. Same sheets, same pillow, same mattress. No personal sleeping space whatsoever. The ratio is usually 3 sailors to 2 racks. At any given time, one person is sleeping while the other 2 are on watch, working, or training. The system works because the submarine operates 24 hours a day. Someone is always awake, someone is always sleeping, and someone is always waiting for their turn. For new submariners, this is one of the most jarring adjustments. You don't just lose privacy, you lose the concept of personal space entirely. Your bunk isn't yours, your sheets aren't yours, even your sleep schedule isn't really yours. And speaking of sleep schedules, let's talk about how submarines used to operate. For decades, US submarines ran on an 18-hour day, 6 hours on watch, 6 hours for maintenance and personal time, 6 hours for sleep. Think about that. An 18-hour day, your body's internal clock runs on roughly 24 hours, but the submarine forced you into 18. Every single day, you were desynchronized. Your circadian rhythm was destroyed. Sailors lived in a state of permanent jet lag. Around 2014, the submarine force finally transitioned to 24-hour schedules with 8-hour watches. Sleep quality improved dramatically. Cognitive performance went up. But even with this change, submariners still average only 6 to 7 hours of sleep per day because of constant maintenance demands, qualification studying, and the relentless operational tempo. And here's the kicker. You're sleeping in a space roughly 6 feet long by 2 feet wide. A coffin-sized rack stacked 3 high, with just enough room to lie down and maybe read with a small light. No windows, no sunlight, no natural time cues. Just artificial light, ventilation fans, and the constant hum of machinery. Sleeping through that noise is a learned skill. Earplugs become standard gear. Sleep masks are essential, and you train yourself to fall asleep anywhere, anytime, because when your shift ends, you need to sleep immediately. There's no winding down, no relaxing. You have 6 to 8 hours before your next watch starts, and you need to maximize every minute. Senior enlisted sailors, chiefs, and officers get their own racks, but even those are stacked 3 high in cramped spaces. The only difference is they don't have to share. For junior sailors, hot racking becomes a defining part of the submarine experience. It's not just uncomfortable, it's a psychological test. Can you surrender the idea of personal space? Can you accept that nothing is truly yours? Can you trust the 130 other people on this boat with your life, your sleep, and your sanity? Because if you can't, you won't last. Chapter 3. The Food Reality. Now let's talk about food, because this is where submarine life gets creative. Before a 90 to 120-day patrol, submarines load approximately 15,000 to 18,000 pounds of food for a crew of 140 to 160 sailors. That's enough to produce roughly 54,000 meals over 3 months. But here's the problem. There's no pantry, no storage room, no walk-in freezer. So where does all that food go? Everywhere. Giant number 10 cans of flour, vegetables, fruit, coffee, and other staples are stacked directly on the deck in the mess area and passageways. Plywood sheets are laid over the cans to create a temporary walking surface. For the first few weeks of the patrol, sailors literally walk on their dinner. As the weeks pass and food is consumed, the floor gets lower, the stacks shrink, and eventually you're walking on the actual deck again. Every available void space is packed with food, under deck plates, behind panels, in hidden compartments, anywhere a can or box can fit. They call it eating your way out. And it's the only way to store enough food for months at sea. Now let's talk about the galley, the kitchen where all this food is prepared. It's smaller than most residential bathrooms, roughly 10 feet by 14 feet. And in that tiny space, submarine culinary specialists produce 4 meals per day for the entire crew. Breakfast from 0600 to 0800, lunch from 1100 to 1300, dinner from 1700 to 1900, and midnight rations from 2300 to 0100 for sailors coming off late watch. That's 400 to 600 meals per day, in a closet-sized kitchen, on a moving platform that rolls, tilts, and changes depth without warning. No open flames are allowed because fire is one of the deadliest hazards aboard a submarine. Everything is cooked using electric stoves, ovens, griddles, and steamers. Pressure cookers become essential, convection ovens run constantly, and the culinary specialists develop techniques to cook everything from pancakes to burgers to full roast dinners in a space where 3 people can barely stand side by side. But here's where it gets really interesting. Food quality changes dramatically over the course of a patrol. Weeks 1 and 2 are the golden age. Fresh produce, lettuce, tomatoes, fruits, fresh milk, eggs and dairy, high-quality meats and seafood. Crew morale is high because the food is actually good. Weeks 3 through 8 are the frozen era. Fresh produce is gone, frozen vegetables and meats dominate the menu. UHT milk from a dispenser they call the plastic cow replaces fresh dairy. Menu creativity becomes critical to maintain morale. Weeks 9 and beyond are the powdered era. Powdered eggs, powdered milk, reconstituted ingredients, canned goods and non-perishables are the only options left. Hot sauce becomes a primary food group to mask the bland flavors. This decline in food quality is called the freshness fade, and it's one of the most demoralizing aspects of long patrols. But here's the thing, food is the single most controllable factor affecting crew morale. A talented culinary specialist who can make powdered eggs taste decent or create a special surf and turf night becomes a hero. These meals are scheduled weeks in advance. Sailors look forward to them, they talk about them, they count down the days, because when you're living in a steel tube with no sunlight, no privacy and no escape, a good meal is everything. Special events matter. Pizza night, ethnic cuisine, holiday dinners. These aren't just meals, they're morale operations, and the culinary specialists know it. They work 16-hour days in a kitchen the size of a closet, cooking on a moving platform, managing limited ingredients, and somehow keeping 150 sailors fed and functional. In a closed environment, food contamination can spread illness through the entire crew in days. So galley hygiene is obsessively maintained. All cooking surfaces, utensils and storage areas are cleaned after every meal cycle. Strict procedures govern food handling, storage temperatures and waste disposal. The galley ventilation is linked to the submarine's atmosphere control system, scrubbing out cooking odours and preventing smoke buildup. Because if the galley goes down, morale collapses. And if morale collapses, the mission is at risk. Chapter 4. The Psychological Truth. Here's what nobody tells you about submarine life. And it's not the cramped quarters that break people. It's not the lack of sunlight or the recycled air or the 3-minute showers. It's the complete surrender of everything you thought was normal. You share your bed with strangers. You ration water like it's a precious resource. You eat food stored under your feet. You live in artificial light with no sense of day or night. You breathe air that's been filtered and recycled hundreds of times. You hear the same machinery hum 24 hours a day. And you do this for 90 days straight, sometimes longer. No breaks, no days off. No escape. The submarine force is voluntary for a reason. Forcing people into this environment would be inhumane and operationally dangerous. Only a small percentage of sailors can tolerate it, but those who adapt report something remarkable. The bonds they form are stronger than almost any other military community. When you share your bunk, your shower and your meals with the same 130 people for 3 months in a steel tube, you develop a level of trust and interdependence that's difficult to explain to anyone who hasn't experienced it. You learn to sleep through anything. You learn to shower in 3 minutes. You learn to appreciate powdered eggs. You learn to live without privacy, without sunlight, without any of the comforts you took for granted on land. And you learn that you're capable of far more than you ever thought possible. Because submarine life isn't just about operating a vessel. It's about operating yourself in an environment designed to break you. The sailors who succeed don't just survive, they thrive. They find meaning in the shared hardship. They take pride in doing something most people can't imagine. They become submariners. Chapter 5. The Reality Check. So let's recap what we've learned. Submariners shower in 3 to 5 minutes using rationed water, signing up for time slots and sharing facilities with 30 other sailors. On modern nuclear submarines, they get hot water daily. On older diesel boats, they showered once every few weeks in ice-cold water. They sleep in coffin-sized racks stacked 3 high, often sharing bunks with 2 other sailors in a system called hot racking. They climb into beds still warm from the previous occupant, using the same sheets and pillow with no personal sleeping space whatsoever. They eat meals cooked in a closet-sized galley by culinary specialists who produce 400 to 600 meals per day on a moving platform with no open flames. They walk on their food for the first few weeks of patrol, eating their way out as supplies are consumed. And they watch food quality decline from fresh produce to frozen meals to powdered ingredients over the course of 3 months. This is life underwater. This is what it takes to operate the most advanced submarines in the world. This is the sacrifice that 150 sailors make every single day, hidden beneath the ocean's surface, doing a job most people will never see or understand. And they do it voluntarily, because they believe in the mission, because they trust their crew, and because they've proven to themselves that they can endure what most people can't even imagine. That's the reality of submarine life. No glamour. No comfort, just shared hardship, relentless discipline, and bonds forged in the depths. We are committed to releasing 3 videos a week. Like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more AnchorWatch.